A crisp winter's day in Sydney, the sun generating enough energy to power this entire apartment block. The switch to solar led by resident Nathan Hage.
If you can have solar, then you should. For this apartment, the consumption has gone down by about 60%, which is huge.
Despite strong uptake of solar on houses, apartments have mostly missed out.
The biggest stumbling block, was about how we share the solar.
That's because until recently, it's been impossible to split power from one solar system to individual units.
So we thought we need to find a solution to this problem, and we ended up developing a world-first technology, the SolShare, that allows rooftop solar to be directly connected to apartment buildings.
But innovation isn't cheap. One SolShare unit costs $12,000.
In order to reach our net zero targets, we need to make sure we're rolling out this technology to everyone, not just a certain section of the community.
The changes we make to our own homes will play an important part in Australia's transition towards net zero, and the federal government knows it, offering households $1 billion in cheap loans for energy upgrades. The aim is to make things like solar more accessible for everyone.
It doesn't fix all the problems, but makes the playing field more level, gives people on lower incomes a better chance to make the sorts of investments they'd like to make.
Even with help, it's a long road ahead. The average Australian home has an energy efficiency rating of 1.8 out of 10. Too hot in summer and cold in winter.
So it's currently 7 degrees in our living room. On a similar -3 day, it got down to 4.5 degrees, which is about the equivalent of a fridge. So yeah, 7 degrees isn't too bad.
Mitchie Moses is an architect specialising in energy efficiency. She says air leakage and poor insulation are common causes of heat loss.
We can actually see there are some cold spots up at the architraves, and you can see the gaps in the insulation as well.
But there are simple and relatively cheap solutions.
Basic everyday things that we can do, like draft sealing, adding insulation, that are very cost effective and will give you the most bang for your buck.
Advocates calling for mandatory retrofits of rentals across the country.
We see a role for governments to actually create a minimum standard and require these features in rental properties, because that will ensure that no matter what rent you're paying, you'll actually have a home that you can stay healthy in.
Others are going a step further.
There is an incredible opportunity to introduce mandatory retrofits of all buildings.
Ambitious and expensive, but this 1960s apartment block in Fitzroy is an example of what's possible. It's the nation's first Energy Plus retrofit of its kind.
It's entirely electric, and it's generating more energy on an annual basis than it consumes.
Achieved by installing new glazing, insulation, solar panels, a heat pump, an airtight render and more. The energy upgrades cost $400,000, but Ross says the building could soon generate zero energy bills. He's on a mission to transform the city.
In Melbourne alone, there's 1 million buildings that need to be retrofit. If we retrofit all of them, it would reduce Melbourne's carbon emissions by around about 55%.
While retrofits of all buildings isn't a policy Labor's pursuing, the federal government says it could play a bigger role in energy standards into the future.
That regulatory space around landlords is something that would be a discussion point, I think, over coming years, but nobody's rushing to make that policy choice anytime soon.
Renters also deserve to live in healthy, thermally efficient, affordable homes.
With a third of Australians renting, all political parties are paying attention. Sarah Tomevska, SBS World News.